The Nameless were larger than humanoids, possessing 4 legs and claws. The beings' front limbs, which featured 3 claws, were long and desiccated, twitching slightly as they moved. They possessed sharp teeth and had tentacles around their mouth. Their skin was pale white and their face featured large red eyes. The creature's blood was black in color. However, the hallucinations that the Nameless caused manifested differently to individuals, resulting in various perceptions of the creatures, which included a darkness with hundreds of teeth, claws and eyes, and a towering, monstrous creature. The creatures were driven by a desperate desire to feed and a hunger that was satiated by drawing upon Force-sensitive individuals. They understood nothing beyond their hunger and were incapable of comprehending dangers such as radiation. The Nameless would continue to hunt their prey even when wounded. The creatures made sounds that included growling and howling, as well as loud screeches. There was only one way for the Nameless to be controlled, an ancient artifact in the form of a rod that could be twisted in order to command the beings. The creatures known as the Nameless were powerful beings that had a strong effect on Force sensitives. To such individuals, the presence of the Nameless induced madness and hallucinations, which left Force users unable to truly see what a Nameless looked like, overwhelming them and nullifying their connection to the Force. Proximity to the creatures was enough to kill a Force user, petrifying the individual. The resulting condition left the victim in what came to be referred to as a husked state, desiccated and devoid of life, as if they were made of stone. While some instances of husks were more substantial and solid, others disintegrated into ash at the slightest touch. The beings could also seemingly draw the life out of other Force users, making them appear as if they had aged dramatically and slowing their vital functions. Even at a greater distance, the creatures obscured the Force and disturbed Force sensitives, causing distress and unease, a sense of dread on the edge of one's consciousness that originated from outside of the Force, and magnified existing feelings of fear and exhaustion. By the time of the High Republic era, the creatures had become known to some as the Nameless, and to others as the Shri-Kare, or Eaters of the Force. The Rose, a family of Everini who had a history with the Jedi Order that involved conflict and a fate that came about due to both the Jedi and the artifact that controlled the Nameless, were associated with one of the creatures, which the faithful revered as the Great Leveler, unaware of its real name. Believing the Jedi were not agents of balance like the Leveler was, the Rose were connected to an attempt to use the Nameless against the Jedi, but were defeated, leaving them longing for revenge. Having been looked upon by one of the family's ancestors, the Leveler came to be frozen in ice in the shrine underneath the surface of the planet Rystan, guarded by droid attendants and visited by further generations of the family. The Elders of the Path, a group who strongly opposed the Jedi and the Force sensitives, came into possession of the artifact that could control the Nameless. Aware of the danger the artifact possessed as a weapon, the Elders divided it into 2 and hid both pieces, swearing to never reveal the locations. One of the 2 halves was hidden in the Karshevak ruins on the moon Vartanum, in the Stigmarn system. The other half of the rod was eventually recovered by the Rose. The Jedi tried to suppress all knowledge of the Nameless, leaving members of their own order unaware of the threat. An individual who was once a Jedi of the Jedi Order wrote about the creature in a script that was also present in the Vrant Tarnum's Karshavark ruins. The beings were associated with a nursery rhyme song, the words of which could also be found in the ruins, that began with the line, Shri Kare Kare. The words of the song claiming that the listener would be taken away, and that when they were found all that would be left was dust. The nursery rhyme associated with the creature was sung by Rusta Vidyarvanit, an Angry nursemaid from Dalna who cared for Jedi younglings during the High Republic era. The nursery rhyme associated with the creatures was sung by Rusta Vidyarvikt, an Angry nursemaid from Dalna who cared for Jedi younglings during the High Republic era. Among those who heard the song as younglings were future Jedi Masters Stellan Gios and Emmerich Kaftor. On Rystan, the Leveler came to be neglected by those whose ancestors had revered it, unvisited and forgotten. The Rose eventually became aligned with the Nile, a marauder group that arose from the Elders of the Path and were created by a member of the family as a weapon to wield against the Republic and the Jedi. Asgar Ro, who established himself as the Eye of the Nile after killing his mother, came to possess the Rose half of the artifact as well as a number of associated texts that he kept in his collection aboard his flagship, the Gaze Electric. After Asgar Ro's death, his son, Markion, took his place. Inheriting Asgar's goal of revenge, Markion Ro took possession of the artifact as well as the texts, which he studied extensively, seeking to achieve what he believed his father had been too afraid to try. Around the year 232 BBY, Ro orchestrated the Great Hyperspace Disaster, bringing the Nile to the attention of the Republic and the Jedi. After the battle occurred, Jedi Knight Elzar Mann had a Force vision of the screams and fear the Nameless would bring. Having searched for the other half of the artifact for years, Ro learned its location, recovering it from Vart Tarnum in the wake of the Great Disaster. Ro set out to retrieve the Leveler around a year later, traveling to Rystan. Along with him, he brought the Nile member Udi Dis, a Force-sensitive Talatori navigator, in order to test the powers that the creature had on Force users. Ro and Dis met with the former's cousin, Kufa, who herself had not visited the shrine in a decade, in order to be led to the Leveler. Approaching its location, Dis began to feel its effect, feeling as if something was missing when he reached out to the Force. As they arrived at the shrine, Dis was overwhelmed by the Leveler, losing his senses and seeing hallucinations of his past. The group fought through the droid attendants that guarded the shrine, during which Dis was fatally injured, having been unable to sense the attack coming. In awe of the Leveler's power and satisfied with his test, Ro killed both Kufa and Dis, setting a beacon for the Leveler to be collected. Keeping the Leveler encased in ice, Ro brought it with him to the Nile's base on Grizzle. The creature was transported to the laboratory of the Chantrafan doctor Kizma Uttersond aboard the Gaze Electric, where Uttersond fabricated a heating rig to defrost it so that the creature could be tested on their subject, the Jedi Master Loden Greatstorm, who Ro had taken prisoner around a year earlier. Greatstorm was killed during the ensuing battle of Grizzle, while Man and Padawan Bel Zalfar were left in a mental anguish for the time being. Seeing Greatstorm's corpse left in a calcified state, even Jedi Master Stellan Gios was left afraid as the body turned to rubble. Jedi investigator Emmerich Kaftor was dispatched to learn more about Greatstorm's death, and was partnered with private detective Sion Holt at the request of Supreme Chancellor Lina So. At the same time, Uttersond was trying to defect from the Nile by selling Nameless off on the black market. Meanwhile, Tempest runner Lorna D used the Leveler against the Jedi during the skirmish on Zeiss as a test for the creature, hurting the Jedi Knight Keeve Trenis and beginning the calcification process on Jedi Knight Tarek, which also impacted their bond twin Sarat. Although they were both left in a hibernation trance, Sarat and Tarek's bond saved them both from death. After the Leveler's actions proved the usefulness of the Nameless, Ro planned to follow old family secrets to the hidden world where he could find more of the creatures. Leading a team of Nile to the surface, Ro used the control rod to lead his team to the Nameless, ordering his men to fight through the planet's fauna as it reacted in rage to the rod. Collecting several Nameless and escaping, Ro told the surviving members of the power the beings held and how his family had once used them against the Jedi. With more Nameless secured, Ro plotted to bring down the Starlight Beacon as a major strike against the Republic and the Jedi. As 3 Nile agents snuck aboard and sabotaged Starlight systems, the 7 Nameless they kept aboard their freighter, logged as Rathtars to keep their existence hidden, left the Jedi on Starlight on edge and unable to sense the sabotage. As the station began to break apart, the Nameless broke free from the ship and began a rampage throughout Starlight, killing a number of Jedi, including Orla Jareni. Meanwhile, the Republic launched an attack on a Nile convoy that, unknown to them, was carrying more Nameless to Starlight, so Kaftor was left in a state of shock when a mere peephole was opened on one of the crates. Arriving to Starlight amid the destruction, Uttersond told him and Holt about the Nameless before they boarded. As Uttersond escaped, they encountered a Nameless, which Holt needed to describe to her Jedi partner as he was unable to really see it. Holt and Kaftor managed to escape this falling station with a Nameless claw, with the hope that they could use it to learn more about the creatures. Jedi Master Torben Buck also gave Kaftor his robes, which were soaked in Nameless blood, to help the research. As the Nameless continued their rampage, Starlight finally crashed onto the surface of Iram, killing everyone and the remaining Nameless still aboard. Ro took a moment to reflect on losing those 7 Nameless, but understood he alone held the advantage of possessing them. With it clear the Nile had a weapon they could not understand, the Jedi Order ordered all Jedi to return to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, only for Ro to take advantage of their absences via the deployment of the Storm Seeds. After informing the captured Orbituk Glee of his victory, he fed Glee to one of the Nameless and smiled. Meanwhile, Grandmaster Yoda returned to the Jedi Order during the battle on Corellia, with a hooded figure who sang the nursery rhyme connected to the Nameless. Yoda promised his fellow Jedi they would uncover the secrets of the Order's past to prepare for their future. In the time following the High Republic era, the Nameless remained known to the Jedi Order through various tales. After their lessons, clanmates of Jedi Initiate Dooku often swapped tales of the Nameless, among other phantasmagoria. However, Dooku himself did not engage in the stories, distancing himself from the overactive imagination of his peers. After becoming a Sith Lord later in his life, Dooku mentioned his fellow initiates' tales of the Nameless while recounting his past to his apprentice Asajj Ventress. According to a holocron that contained the prophecy of the Chosen One, a sin was done to the Nameless that required the sacrifice of many Jedi to be cleared away by the Order. The holocron further stated that dangers of the past only remained dormant, and the entire galaxy would be at threat once the darkness was released. Thus, when the Force itself falls to corruption, a Chosen One would come, fatherless, and ultimately restore balance to the Force. While training his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn continued to study the holocron and its ancient prophecies, having become fascinated with them as a Padawan under Dooku's tutelage. While detained in the castle of the Sith Lord Darth Vader on the planet Mustafar during the war between the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance Lieutenant Thom Hud spoke of knowing the curse of the Nameless. Hud claimed that the tale was frightening enough to keep one awake at night, and mentioned other dark tales, such as the Silent Circle. While Hud had brought up the tale in an attempt to stall Lord Vinay from executing him, Vinay nonetheless expressed his disinterest in the Hud stories and prepared to kill the rebel. Let me know what your thoughts on the Nameless are in the comments below, and what your predictions are for the next phase of High Republic stories. Remember to like the video, and subscribe for more character spotlights like this, as well as up-to-date news stories, book reviews, gaming videos, and more. As always, thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.